Hey everybody, so I've been compiling this video over the last couple of days on identifying and diagnosing the Capensis problem in Scutellata colonies. Now that is all fair and well for those of you that understand what I'm talking about, but I realized that there's people potentially watching this video that don't have a clue what I'm talking about, and all they've seen in this video is that I'm identifying a bunch of black foreign looking bees and I'm killing off my colonies. I need to just clarify this and explain why we do this and why we are required to by law to kill off these colonies. So I'm not going into the full history here on when it dates back to the early 90s when the Capensis problem started, but the short of the long story is we've got two main honeybee species in South Africa, namely the Apis mellifera scutellata and the Apis mellifera capensis. Apis mellifera scutellata, you just need to remember the term scutellata and capensis for this video. Scutellata bee is from the Orange River basically up north, and the capensis is found from the Orange River down south in the Cape region. There is, to believe, some overlapping and some hybrid in that zone, but it's very distinct. It's distinctly two different bee species that we have in South Africa. And in the early 90s, the Capensis was brought from the Cape up to Gauteng and up north of Gauteng for honey production. And there's a whole history on that. You can go and read up about it. But what was identified was when the worker bee of the Capensis colonies entered our Scutellata colonies, they took over the role of the queen. Our bees treat them as a queen, and they start to breed out in that colony, and the colony dwindles back and dies out, and obviously it spreads from one colony to the next through drifting, which you'll see in this video as well. So that is the reason why we exterminate them when it's identified and found. It's not always the easiest thing to identify and to diagnose, and that's the purpose of doing this video. I'm trusting to make it a little bit easier for those that have any queries. Again, this is my methods, this is the way I do it. There are a lot of other guys out there that diagnose it slightly different, will treat it slightly different to me, and it's up to everyone at the end of the day. But I just needed to get across that we are not just exterminating bees, we are not just killing bees off here. This is now a diseased colony, and that is the only reason why we are killing them off, why we're exterminating them, and it is with a heavy and a sad heart that we have to do this on our production colonies. And it's very controversial when you look at the law in the country. It's now been passed that it is illegal to kill bees. We are no longer allowed to kill bees, and I'm all for that. I'm really glad that that has been passed, and that's another topic for another day. But on the other hand, regulation stipulates that when we find a Capensis problem or a Capensis infestation in a colony, it needs to be exterminated. So we've got very conflicting regulations and laws and rules behind it, but for this particular purpose, it's actually treated the same as the American foul brood down in the Cape. When that was first found, they were at that stage told to burn and to eliminate and exterminate that entire colony at that given time. So we have to treat the Capensis the same way. Thankfully, the Capensis doesn't, it's not a bacteria or a fungus or anything in the hive, it's an actual bee, so we can control it by just exterminating the bees, and it's obviously important to kill the brood inside that hive as well. So I needed to just make this part of the video so that you have an understanding going forward and watching this video as to why we are killing off these bees, for those of you that potentially didn't have the background and the history as to what is the Capensis. This shouldn't be something that every beekeeper should be stressing too much about. It's just something to keep your eyes out for, and as you go through the video here, it will be explained what to look for, and the way, again, this is just the way I identify it. So please take from it what you may, and I just trust that you'll be able to learn something from this. Thank you. I'm out at one of my main breeding apiaries today, and I came across some Capensis infestations in some of these hives last week, Thursday. I left them for the duration of the original lockdown period, the first 21 days. I set the bees up before I left here, and I made sure that and the bees in the background at the back there, I've got a lot of my mating nukes, and so I made sure that a lot of them would be alright until I could get back and check them. When I came through last week Thursday, after 21 days, my main reason for coming through was to inspect some of those mating nukes, to check if the queens are starting to lay, to make sure that they've got space, They look like fairly big boxes, but I've got 2 swarms next to each other in them. I'm running 3 frames on each side. There's one of them as an example right here in the top corner. You can actually see this little box, and that's what they look like. So that's my little mating nukes, and I've got them, like I say, strategically placed all around here. There's no real formation of boxes around here. I've got a lot of bushes and trees and everything just left to try and keep the bees disorientated. Just helps with the queens getting well mated. So when I came through and inspected them on Thursday evening, I went through a couple of these boxes that are my main breeding boxes. They're all pretty much behind me here. I've got about 4 or 5 on this apiary that I use when I'm busy with my queen rearing, and I wanted to just inspect them and just see how things are going. And on arrival last week Thursday, I came across signs, and which is what I'm going to show you in a minute here, of the starting of a Capensis infestation. And there's a lot of bees fighting in the front, and I can identify that it's Capensis just due to the number of black bees that they're fighting off. So I'm going to show you here in front of the boxes now one of the first signs and the first things that I noticed. The particular hive that I suspect it started in is this one over here, where I've got a double brood chamber and a super on top. This particular box next to them here on the ground, I unfortunately killed the queen, the original queen at the bottom. One of my last visits wasn't intentional, and I expected them to requeen, and I'd actually put a virgin queen in on the top here as an experiment. But being so close to this box that was at that stage obviously starting to get infected with Capensis, they're full on laying Capensis in this box at the moment as well. So I'm actually back here this evening to be killing off the 3 of them where I found the Capensis, and where the queens are no longer laying, and the Capensis has just overtaken the boxes. But this is particularly 2 of them here, and I'll show you in a second here what I noticed just at the front of these 2 boxes, just the fighting and just the bees trying to defend the hives. But even at this stage now, they're still doing the same thing. They're still fighting off the Capensis. And yet they are fully infested, pulled up frames, and it's full of Capensis lane workers. And that I inspected that Thursday evening last week. I try and work a lot of these boxes at night in case of this kind of thing, so that's why I'm again back here. I'm not going to be disturbing them today. I'm waiting until it gets dark again, and I'm going to be eliminating them, exterminating them. I am going to open the one just for the purposes of the video. I want to be able to show you the signs and what to look for. 3 indicators for me are sign of black bees, multiple eggs laid in a cell, and then a lack of a queen, lack of a good brood pattern. I know that the queen has been killed off, or they're no longer queen right, and that's when I'll exterminate them. So that's the case on 3 of the boxes here. The other one's just behind us there, just over my shoulder, and that's the other one that's going to be eliminated or exterminated tonight. And I'll be going through a couple of the others just to make sure. I have spotted 1 or 2 that have got the odd Capensis bee in them, but that's normal, especially with having this amount of Capensis breeding out in the apiary. I can expect to have a couple that have got lost due to drifting through workforce. This has obviously set me back, all due to this lockdown period where I've had to wait, or have not got into my bees for 21 days. I would have picked this up sooner. If I look back in my notes, I started picking up multiple eggs in this particular colony just before the lockdown, and I didn't suspect Capensis at that stage. I thought I just had a case of lane workers, and so I misdiagnosed it, and 3 weeks later I'm now sitting with massive infestation throughout here. If I had been continually working my apiaries as normal, I would have been in these boxes within the next 4 or 5 days after that. I would have been going through them every 3 to 5 days for management practices anyway, and I would have come across it, would have been able to exterminate only the 1 box, and probably would have been able to control it there. But I'm sitting now with a scenario where I've got my entire apiary here, all my little mating nukes are vulnerable to this Capensis, and I'm really just trusting for miracle here that I don't end up having to eliminate them all. But at this stage I'm hoping to be able to contain it in these 3 boxes. So I'm going to show you here in front of the hives now what I first noticed last week when I came through as well, and it's the same now. So I should have come back 24 hours later. I just wasn't able to get back here. I wasn't expecting to have this problem. I would normally, if I find the problem, I close the box up, I leave them, and I return the very next evening to eliminate them or exterminate them. But this is what I'm seeing here in the front. I want you to note the behavior at the far entrance there on the right, that entrance over there. Look at the behavior of the bees underneath the entrance. You can see that they've actually got one of the Capensis bees. I'm going to try and lean in and show you. There's one running along the entrance. But look at how they've grabbed that bee. They're stinging that bee. And at first sight it would look like it's just robbing going on. But when you look carefully, you can actually see the color of that bee. You can see that it's a black bee, and that makes me suspicious that it's Capensis. And then when you come out a little bit and you look around, if you look around in front of the box, there's a lot of leaves here, so it's difficult. But if you've got an apiary where you don't have so many leaves, you'll be able to see it easier. But as I come in, I can actually see one sitting on the leaf here. That's a Capensis. I can see a bee just underneath those leaves there. There's actually a scutellata fighting off the Capensis. I come to my right here, I've got another one crawling around on the leaves. And I'm just looking, but you'll quite often find them fighting with them actively a little bit of a distance from the entrance as well, and I'm just looking for that. I did see it here just now. The importance of just surveying your colonies and knowing what's going on the outside. When you get to an apiary, have a look at what your bees are doing. Look at how they're behaving. They tell you a lot by the way they're working. Other than that, they're still bringing in pollen, they're still looking good, and I would suspect that this particular colony would actually maybe just be fighting them off. I wouldn't know that there's good pollen coming in. I wouldn't know that they're actually infested until you open it up. And this particular box, I've got 2 little mini nukes on the top where I was running an experiment with, and last week Thursday I actually opened up the side with the entrance on the front there, and I inspected them, and those frames are fully laid up with Capensis, and I'll be pulling one of those frames just now just to be able to show you what to look for, which is the final sign of Capensis. I want to stop the video here now. I want to move on to that big box on the end there and just show you what's going on in front of that one. There's a lot more there. That was where it originally started. So as we come in here, you can see in front of this box there's a scutellata bee dragging a Capensis away. They'll drag them away, they kick them out as much as they can, but this hive is already fully infested. There's just so many of them around here. And coming to the entrance, you'll actually see they look like normal. They look like a normal swarm working, going about their business. But if you look carefully, and I've stood here and waited and watched for a while, there comes one now. There goes a Capensis in, and it goes in as a worker bee. So it does prove to me as well. And there's another one. It's landed on the entrance. Watch it go in. Look, it's got pollen on it. Look out, you can actually see it's offloading to a normal scutellata, and there it goes in. So you actually could see the pollen dust. That was an active foraging Capensis. There's one sitting here on the entrance. They're just ignoring it. So then you know that this swarm has accepted these Capensis. They're no doubt breeding out. Why they then start to choose to kill off the odd one, I can't understand this, and hopefully somebody watching this can reach out to me and give me some insight as to what their opinions are as to why even a colony that is already heavily infested and overtaken with Capensis would still be fighting them off. This is in front of the same box here. There goes one now with the Capensis on its feet. So they are actively the whole time still fighting certain of the Capensis, and I wonder what it is, why they fight some of them off and they don't fight others. And right here on my boot now, this just shows you how many are around. There's one sitting on my boot. So You can distinctively see the color difference. There goes one out. And there on the other entrance they've grabbed one now. That one came out and they've grabbed it and they're going to start to fight with it. There we go. Dropped to the ground. That bee is stinging it. Okay, I'm battling to get the camera across there because I'm right in their flight path here. Here they've got another one here. There's another one there. You can see how this bee is agitated by it, and it's just sitting there, but this bee is really agitated by it, and it's so weird. It's like it's got its tongue out, that it's looking to feed it, but that bee is more agitated by it than wanting to feed it. It's like it's begging for food. Let's see what happens if they grab it and they start to fight with it, or if they actually accept her. I've just come back to this bee here. I really want to see what they do with it, but I had to just abort mission. I had one getting a bit stuck into my face here. There it goes back in. Interesting, very interesting. There's another one crawling around the entrance. Off it goes. There's another one, off it goes. This is now the entrance back on the other hive, the other entrance, and you can actually see how they're balling one or two of these Capensis in front of it. So I just wanted to show you what I see there as a first sign when I look at my boxes. If I pick up black bees like that in the entrances, if I pick up fighting, then I know that I need to check that swarm and just really make sure I know what's going on there. But that's the first sign to me, is when I start to see the black bees either around the boxes or inside. As I say, if you're only working your bees at night, you don't always see that because you don't see them working, you don't see them fighting around the entrances. But I'll show you now as well, when I open the box up, often your Capensis, when they're on the top of the frames, they run down. So you can often see them just at first glance there. You'll see a couple of black bees. But even if you are working them at night, if you come across black bees, that to me is one of the first signs I look for. And then when I open this box, I'm going to be opening this one over here. So normally I wouldn't even be doing this, but I know with this particular box, I actually have brood above the queen excluder there, and I've got laying Capensis in those frames. So I'm going to be showing you, I'm going to just pull a frame there and show you what it looks like and what my next steps on, where I make the call whether I eliminate them or not. So I'll be showing you that in a second. Just waiting for it to get a little bit later, a little bit cooler in the afternoon as well, when all the bees aren't so busy. I really don't want to be spreading this Capensis any further than I have to. I'll be with you now. Okay, I'm back between these two hives now from earlier that I showed you. The Capensis, or the black bees in the front of the boxes, was these two that we were taking the videos of. I waited until it's a little bit later in the day. Want to open them while it's still a little bit light, or not both of them. Like I said, I don't normally open them when I know that they're infested like this with Capensis, but just due to the fact that I want to make this video, I want to show you what it looks like when the Capensis is actively laying. As I mentioned earlier, this box behind us is a double brood chamber and a super, which would require me having to take off the top super and getting down into the brood chambers before I could show you a frame. So I'm not going to open that box at all. Right after dark this evening, they're going to be exterminated. The box I'm going to be opening is this one in front of me now. So I'm going to be just drawing a frame out of here, just for the purpose of showing you what the Capensis laying looks like, what the brood pattern looks like, and how to assess it when you're opening up the hive. And then from there I'm going to be closing them up. I'm not going to be going any further into these hives, and I'm going to be exterminating them this evening when it gets dark. Alright, onto the bees now. Okay, I've just started by smoking the bees just a little bit through the entrance here, but they've even got this hum about them. You can hear that they're not happy bees. I just want to get some gloves on. You would have seen in my previous videos I promote wearing gloves at all times. I do not like to portray being brave and risking getting yourself stung. It's not worth it, especially not dealing with our African bees. Okay, you'll notice as well the gloves that I wear when I'm working my commercial hives, the big hives, a little bit heavy duty, because when we get into these hives there's often a lot more bees and the aggression can be a little bit worse. Okay, so I start out by just giving them a little bit of smoke on the entrance as normal, because up until now you're doing a normal inspection, but with just keeping in mind that you are looking for signs of Capensis. As I've explained, I know that they're infested, but beforehand I would do exactly the same to this point, and I'll show you when I would identify it. So the first thing I look for is when I crack the lid. If I am suspicious about a hive, I don't like to crack it and smoke underneath it, because that's going to just get the bees to go down. But if I lift this lid off straight away, I look on the top of the lid, I start to look for black bees, I look on top of the frames. Interesting, I don't see any in here now. I'm just going to put a bit of smoke over it just to control the aggression in here. Okay, I wanted to see if I can spot some. Again, you don't always. And here I don't, so this is interesting. But I'm going to just put this frame to the side here now. I really don't want to get a lot of bees flying out of this box, because I know how far advanced this Capensis problem is. So I really want to just give them some smoke now. This is not to show you the color of the bees anymore. This is now just to show you what the brood pattern looks like. So I want these bees to go down. I don't want them up here. I don't want them flying around. Going straight for one of the middle frames where I expect to find brood. And as I pull it out, I'm sure you can see it from that side already. Very scattered brood pattern. You see that? You see how the brood is all over the place? They're actually dropping onto the lid here of the other side of the box, so I don't want to bring it too much closer. But look at how scattered that brood pattern is. Okay, they're busy hatching this brood out and they're backfilling it with nectar, but I know just by the look of that scattered brood that that's already a sign to me. And as I look through, here's one running here, that's a Capensis. I look through, here's another one. So I'm on sign 2 already, and in any given situation this would be when I eliminate. There's a lot of them in here. There's there, there's here, there's there. This box is absolutely full of them. So that's literally all I wanted to show you, was what the brood pattern looks like. If I hold a frame at an angle, you might be able to see the slightly raised cells. That's another indication of Capensis. But at this stage, after seeing black bees at the front of my hive and then finding a brood pattern like that, I would eliminate. If you look into the cells here, I'll put a picture up on this video where you can see the eggs in the cell. You won't be able to pick it up, I don't think, in the video here. But my next step would be as well to just, and I've got a headlight on my head, look into the cell, and true enough, there they sit, multiple eggs in a cell. You're normally looking at about 2 eggs or so. A lot of them have a single egg, and it can be difficult if you're looking at just the egg pattern. So there again, that's why I use a 3-phase or a 3-step process. And the eggs are often also sitting not quite in the center of the cell at the bottom. You'll often find them sitting off center, slightly on the wall of the cell, because of the way that the Capensis lays. Their abdomen can't reach down properly into the cell. So I just want to get all these bees back in now. Just killing any odd one that I see. They're all over the place here, really are. So I'm going to just switch lids now for the purpose of being able to exterminate them. And just look at how strong the swarm was. It is such a pity to be having to exterminate them, but unfortunately there's nothing we can do. They are too far gone. I'm not even going to go into the bottom of this hive to look for a laying brood pattern, because I know there isn't. I'm going to just be eliminating them now. So I'm going to close them up, and that's that. So just to give you an example of what it looks like when it's so badly infested, I hope that this was beneficial. I hope that you understand a little bit more about the Capensis, how the infestation starts, and where to start to look for signs. And I really pray and trust that none of you have to go through this, but part of commercial beekeeping is you generally do. If you're just keeping a couple of hives as a hobby, it's probably not something that you're going to face, but as you start to put your bees under more stress, chasing after pollination, high honey yields, when you start migratory beekeeping is when you start to pick up these problems. And obviously in my operation on this particular apiary was due to the stress that I've put some of these colonies under for the queen rearing side of the operation. But anyway, thanks for watching and see you again. Cheers.